and other places that speak Portuguese on the continent. Another project is a project, so this one, the Journal of Public Space, the special issue, was funded by UN Habitat and the City of Johannesburg. So moving to the next body of knowledge is a project that was funded by GIZ on like what is the state of public space in African cities. So it's about questions from decolonial Southern urbanism. How do we see placemaking, issues like that happening on the ground? So there's an article about placemaking in Kigali, in Rwanda. So what we did in this project, we paired authors from South Africa and authors from other African cities to have a conversation about different aspects of public space, whether it's related to contested spaces or to monument building or to human settlements. So it's an exciting body of knowledge as well that is going to be launched next year. So you see, for future initiatives of the center, already we have laid the ground and we have so much to work with, whether it's in terms of peer-to-peer learning and knowledge exchange initiatives. So what we have done, seeing that the first project of creating body of knowledge was mainly academic, we wanted other people to be part and parcel of creating body of knowledge in African cities. So we were funded by Block to do a call for photographs, to invite photographers in Africa under the theme Urban Spaces and Public Life. And it was so exciting. We partnered with a photography school in Johannesburg, in the inner city, the Market Photo Workshop, that helped us with the project, but also mentoring the winners. So we had 10 photographers from the continent that won, from Nigeria, from South Africa, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and the DRC. What was very interesting is to hear from the photographer from Sudan, because it took place during the war, and how the issues of public space are like reflecting or unfolding in her moving from one place to another. So what we have done with that project, after the mentorship, we did an exhibition in one of the old parks in the city of Johannesburg. And it was amazing with photographers, like veteran photographers, to say that our work, most of the time, they end up in galleries, but bringing it in a public space is like the exhibition has come home. And also other people seeing their work and seeing works that talk about street vending as important. It was like seeing themselves and validating themselves. So this was a very moving a piece of work about how public spaces in Africa are seen, but also how they are lived and they are used. And this is a project that we want to take further, to have a long-term project, to have an online urban archive, really working with emerging or street photographers, with the veteran photographers, because they are the ones who've been documenting the city. And maybe by having this project, policymakers can sort of change and see how the cities are changing, and maybe the policies also will change, like beyond text, maybe images can help us. So one of the other important ways in which CABS has been working is through convening. So we've been, asked by a number of institutions to help them convene conferences in Africa. This is just an example, by the International Society on Urban Health, to help them convene a workshop in Nairobi. And then there's another one also in Nairobi by the Urban Fabric Initiative to help them organize a conference of their Francophone public space and placemakers and in Nairobi. And then we are part of global networks. The first one is the placemaking, global placemaking network that is spearheaded by Placemaking X, Ethan. I'm sure he's there. So this has been a wonderful gathering and movement for us to really share knowledge, challenges, and lessons from others. And the other one is the Global Public Space Network that is being spearheaded by UN Habitat. Also good in terms of sharing lessons. But I think the question is, how can these networks create impact on the ground? But also, how can we work together to reach others that are not part of this network? And then the last convening that we have held is the Second African Forum on Urban Forest. We are so happy about this one. It's new. It took place in March in Johannesburg. The center was asked by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN to convene like urban foresters in Africa. So it went very well and it was a success. And then another project is the last one, is the Dream Fund. So in 2022 at the World Urban Forum, when we were launching the center, there was an issue around the importance of competitions to activate and encourage and inspire public space advocates and placemakers in cities. So Dreamtown, one of the organizations in Denmark, was there. So this year they said, can we pilot what we talked about in 2022? So we started in Cape Town, really to launch a first edition of the Dream Fund. And for us as CAPS, we want to understand what is taking place where, so that we can activate the network that we launched and start by connecting people. So the city of Johannesburg is going to scale it next year, and we are working with private sector in terms of increasing the amount, but also the scope. So we're happy about that. This is my last slide, I think. We have received international recognition as CAPS. The first one was in 2023 at the International Making Cities Livable Conference in the UK. We received an award for demonstrating excellence in translating research into practice. And the second one was this year at the European Forum on Urban Forest, for promoting understanding and cooperation between Europe and Africa with respect to green spaces. So we are happy that even though we have challenges as CAPS because of lack of resources, especially as staff, at least there is recognition that it's an important institution. And then the last one is around how can we collaborate with the Biennale in future. I think around contributing to the public space report, that's one avenue. And the second one, it could be around co-hosting future Biennale, maybe have an element of the African pavilion, since I've mentioned we've got a large body of knowledge, but at the same time, our embassy in Rome was so interested in the Biennale, they didn't know about it, and they were asking what could be the future programs also for them in Italy. So it could be one of the avenues. And then the other one is around looking at particular themes within the Biennale. It could be around public spaces in informal settlements, and maybe bringing together other people from the global south, and also post-conflict reconstruction, those kind of themes. And also lastly, around knowledge exchange, webinars and so forth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayanda. It was a wonderful presentation, and the wonderful thing is what you said at the end also in terms of future avenues for cooperation or even joint meetings of the Biennale and the Center for African Public Spaces. The other good thing is that we're looking forward to meeting with you tomorrow morning when you arrived in Rome after your tribulations about flight reservations and the like. So we're really looking forward to explore avenues for cooperation when you get to Rome. So thank you again very much, Ayanda. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow again. And now we are ready to start with the last. Hello? Yes?
I was saying thank you so much to everyone.
Okay, thank you, Ayanda. Thank you again. See you tomorrow then. So, allora adesso comincia l'ultimo segmento della nostra seduta inaugurale, che è dedicato interamente ai progetti globali di UN Habitat ed alla collaborazione, alla storia, al presente e al futuro della collaborazione tra UN Habitat, che è il nostro partner internazionale, e la Biennale. Quindi do la parola a Luisa Bravo, che fa parte del comitato scientifico dell'Associazione Biennale Spazio Pubblico, la quale condurrà questo segmento finale della nostra seduta inaugurale. Luisa, prego.
Grazie Pietro e grazie alla Biennale Spazio Pubblico. Ma questa è una sessione in inglese, giusto Pietro? Esatto. Allora, mentre aspettiamo che i nostri ospiti si colleghino online, sono parte del comitato scientifico della Biennale dello Spazio Pubblico. Non so quando devo iniziare a parlare in inglese. Pietro, inizio a parlare in inglese? Sì. Sì. Okay, switching to English now, because we are officially starting this special inaugural session with UN Habitat. The session is Together in Public Space with UN Habitat, Global Perspectives. So as I said, I'm published the Journal of Public Space that also Ayanda presented as one of the outputs of the African Center on Public Spaces. The journal was launched at the Habitat 3 conference in Quito. And since then, we have been working hard to expand our focus on the Global South, trying to be inclusive for scholars, practitioners, artists, and activists from the Global South to join the conversation. Because I'm here to moderate this amazing panel, I have to say, and thank you, Pietro, for asking me to moderate. So we have today key representatives from UN Habitat that have been working hard on the Global Public Space Program since it was established in 2012. We have here in person, thank you for joining, Dyfed Aubrey, Chief of UN Habitat Office for Europe and European institutions, but we also have connected online Laura Petrella, former lead of the Biennale of Public Space. We also have online Elin, Andersdotter Fabre, the leader of the Her City program, promoted by UN Habitat. And we also have Josè Chong, the current leader of the Global Public Space program and of the Inclusive Communities Thriving Cities program. So I hope they are all already online and listening to this session. Now I give the floor to, your pronunciation is bad, David. Okay, thanks. Okay.
David.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for inviting UN Habitat to join the Biennale. And we're very happy to be partners over several years of the existence of the Biennale. If we can... More than 16 years in a lot of conflict countries such as Iraq, Syria, Palestine, Libya, and those countries, as well as being based in Africa for a while. And now I'm actually in Europe, heading our office for the European Union. So I'm partly engaged also on the European discussions on sustainable cities. Next slide. So UN Habitat, if you don't know Habitat, we're a United Nations agency, and we focus on sustainable human settlements, and we promote more sustainable environments through providing knowledge, providing policy advice, providing technical assistance, and organizing collaborative action to leave no one and no place behind. Next. We have a strategic plan that focuses on 4 different domains, one around inequality and poverty, the second one, which is around the idea that cities should how we respond to crises in cities. And public space is a key aspect, particularly on making cities, reducing inequality in cities. We look at the distribution of public spaces in cities and the accessibility of them all and the role of public spaces in fostering social cohesion. So it's a very important element of our strategic plan going forward. But also when we look at preventing crisis in cities, this role of public space, this role of creating the commons, the areas of social and cultural interaction is also so important. Also harnesses the importance of public space. We have an increased focus now on housing, and when we look more broadly at housing, we recognize that housing is not just a house, but it's the community, it's the neighborhood, it's access to basic services, it's access to community, it's access to public space, and it's access to economic resources. So public space remains to be really in the heart of UN Habitat's agenda. Next slide. And even the next one. So in accordance with the Charter on Public Space, which I'll come back to, accessible, enjoyable by all, for free, and without a profit motive. This was produced by the Charter on Public Space, which actually was an outcome of the Biennale. And the idea of this came from the World Urban Forum, which takes place every 2 years. And it was hosted in Napoli, I think in 2012, was it? 2012. And an outcome of the World Urban Forum in Napoli was to consider a global definition of public space. And the Biennale then went forward and produced this. So we are working with this definition. Next slide. So we recognize sort of three main typologies of public spaces. One is streets, the second is open spaces, and the third then is public facilities. All of them have to be freely accessible to all. Next. And then why does it matter? We see in terms of UN Habitat's mandate on sustainable and inclusive cities, the importance of public space to enhance environmental sustainability, to enhance urban safety, to promote equity and social inclusion, to increase transport efficiency, to improve health and well-being, and to promote livelihood and investment opportunities. So it really captures a huge amount of sustainable development focus. If we go to the next slide. And just to give an example of this, in Colombia, we've just recently completed a program for refugee integration in cities. So a while ago, there was a crisis in Tanzania. We had people moving from Tanzania to Colombia, to Ecuador, to Peru. And one of the ways prevention. We've done the same in Lebanon. We've done the same in slums in Africa. We really see the co-creation of public space in providing that sense of belonging. And when refugees are new to a city, they don't belong. Importantly, working with youth in co-creating public space with the host communities, the local communities, the refugee communities working together, creating not just public space, but massive murals and artwork was really a way of breaking the ice and helping people to understand each other and helping to belong. So we use this as a tool quite frequently. Next slide. So why is it? Because it's so key on to promote sustainable cities, public space has made it into the global agendas. So I have a little badge here, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is what the world has signed up to between 2015 and 2030. And there's a goal, number 11, on sustainable cities and communities. And one of the outcomes of this, then, one of the targets is by 2030, providing universal access to safe, inclusive, accessible, green and public spaces, particularly for women and children, older persons and persons with disabilities. So UN Habitat, we have to also monitor that globally. So what we're looking at is the built up areas of cities that's open for public space for all, public space by all, by sex, age, persons and disabilities. So we're looking at this sort of physical provision, but our partners in UN Office of Drugs and Crime are also looking at areas, the protection and the sort of behavior of what goes on in public space, whether they're safe and whether they're accessible. If we three-quarters of cities have less than 20% of the area available for public space, and a better distribution of public space. And a lot of the cities in developed big challenge, but also in cities that have been well planned, we see also the privatization of public spaces. Beirut is an example where we've seen a massive deterioration of the availability of public space, Mogadishu and others. So we really recognize it's the role of local governments to protect those public spaces. Some of them have been around for hundreds of years, but they have to continually be protected. And it's an important role of government to protect that public space. Next. We also have the New Urban Agenda, which is more of a technical way of making sure that cities deliver on sustainable development. Again, the social, economic, environmental, and spatial aspects of public space is well integrated into the new urban agenda. So these are the kind of global agendas. Then next slide, coming to Europe, where I'm now based, there's also the European urban agenda. So this is the 27 member states looking at different aspects of sustainable urbanization. And every year they've looked at 2 particular aspects. So by now, since 2016, they have 20 different detailed policy recommendations, but public space is integrated at least into 4 of those 20 areas that have been reviewed, particularly around cultural heritage, security, the greening of cities, and particularly looking and then the sustainable land use. And there's a new one now on compact cities, so that needs to be there. And there's a new one on things like climate and heat island effects. And public space again is coming into that dimension in terms of making sure that there's nature-based solutions and green approaches to heat island effects. Just go to the next one. The new European Bauhaus also is a way of promoting this sort of nexus between beauty, sustainability, and togetherness. Again, public space is in the heart of that. I think I'm going to have to hand over to my colleagues. So let me jump off and give you the floor back. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think there will be some time at the end of all presentation to exchange some comments. Laura was the former lead of the Planning, Design, Finance and Economy of UN Habitat, and also in charge of the Global Public Space Program. Now, since she recently retired, she joined the scientific committee of the Biennale dello Spazio Pubblico. So,
yes.
Okay, Laura, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I hear sometimes the voice, the sound is cut on this side, so I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, sometimes we lose connection, but you can start.
Yeah, yes, sorry, I don't know what's the issue, but I'd like to thanks first of all the Biennale for organizing this session. I've been presented, so I'm happy to speak today about the challenges we faced and we have faced with addressing issues of public space, and also try to put some thoughts on what are some of the avenues in front of us, from particularly from a global perspective. Next. Yeah, so I think it has been already mentioned. The global agenda around the public space has been very well presented, but I just wanted to stress that this is particularly important for because it was a process and now it is a tool for actually dynamizing the constellation of actors and partners that work on public space. We have spoken about the target in the Sustainable Development Goals on public space and the new urban agenda, and the overlap to a large extent between the public space and the public city that has been also mentioned, which make the public space one of the key assets of our collective city in a way. So I just wanted to stress that this was an effort to bring this on the agenda, was a collective effort which brought together academia and also cities themselves, civil society, etc. And that is and where the United Nations, including UN Habitat in particular, had a very also critical role. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Next slide. Yeah. Yeah, so what we were up against has been actually mentioned already by Dyfed. We had the possibility with the process of the SDG discussion to bring the topic of public space to the attention of both developing and developed countries. We were facing, and we continue actually to face, a huge deficit in the amount, the fair distribution, the quality of design and management of public space across all regions, and also a very powerful trend of privatization and gating and exclusion of public space, in public space, with very strong trends of inequality in terms of access to quality public space. And this has been shaping the way public space is experienced, accessed, and developed in many countries. No, these are aspects that are common to the North and the South, and this is despite the very different level of resources, the typology of urban form, and the level of development, and also tradition of public space. So we keep a global view, but of course we are very much aware of the differences in each different context. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, as we spoke already of the genesis of the goal, it is interesting to look how we moved from the work together to develop principles and foundational concept for public space, to putting it in the SDG framework and then in the new urban agenda. And I want to remind here that this was really something in which the Biennale participated from the very beginning. Habitat launched the public space program in 2012. In May 2013, the Biennale adopted the Charter of Public Space, and in 2015, UN Habitat produced, actually in collaboration with the Biennale and with INU, the Italian Institute of Urbanism, the Global Public Space Toolkit, which was a sort of very foundational document for us and for the international community. And this was used in a key document to inform, and these were both the key documents to inform the discussion on the SDG and then the new urban agenda. Next slide. So I wanted, what would be my key message is that while since 2015 and even before, a lot of effort has been going, and rightly so, to improve specific public space and involve communities at the local level with a variety of entry points and tools, and developing quite a very wide array of tools and approaches. However, we still remain with the challenge of deploying proportionate effort in addressing structural impediment to public space. And I would like to look at three areas in particular. One, it's related to the planning, legislation, and policies which remain inadequate and hinder somehow citywide efforts or efforts at scale, without whose there cannot be sustainable progress. Then the other area that I'd like to look at is the importance of the collaboration or the influence and the impact on urban development objectives that are not specifically related to public space, but are relevant for public space and where public space can give a strong contribution. It has already been mentioned. We know public space is relevant for housing, for health, but it is a major effort that is needed for continuing to bring forward the relevance of public space in this context, and to harness the power of sectoral and citywide perspective they can also bring. And then finally, one other topic, which is the topic of budgeting and innovating participative management, which we often understand weakly, but it has a quite important let's say, relevance for the implementation and the sustaining of public space during time. Next slide. So if we talk about policies, planning and design and the urban development processes, I think the work that we have been doing to include public space principles and practices in city extension and urban development work, in urban regeneration, in urban upgrading and densification, and finally infrastructure and housing projects. We as UN Habitat and also many others believe and should continue to work on these very relevant urban processes. For instance, city extension are so very relevant when 50% of space that we will need in 2025 is still to be built, for instance. So what do we do with the new cities that are going to be built? Urban regeneration, slum upgrading, these are very difficult and intractable topics to some extent, and the speed of transformation that is happening in city, particularly in the developing world, requires, I think, the community of public space to take a particular look. I think Ayanda mentioned something about that. And then finally, large resources have been invested in infrastructure and housing, where this gap is particularly serious, and public space should be a central item also in this type of project. So we should and we can advocate for reforms in the public policies and in the planning laws, for instance. We need to also continue to work on capacities, both at the policy and the technical level. And then finally, the political will, which I think is so particularly important when we see privatization and conflicting interest playing out in cities on public space. Next, please. So I just wanted to mention just a couple of examples of this work, which is the one. Sorry, in Addis Ababa, the picture on the top, where in the past 10 years there have been huge urban transformation, and in fact, public space has been one of the central topics of this transformation and the discussion around the transformation. There are many different plans and interventions that have looked at public space. This one is from Arup, the planning firm, but the outcome is still quite uncertain, and it will be really interesting to analyze and study how this citywide transformation has embraced and supported the role of public space and the tools of public space eventually, now that the city has changed quite dramatically. Also in the Philippines, we as UN Habitat, we have been working on tackling urban expansion through new planning principles, and UN Habitat has carried out 4 pilot initiatives, which have actually brought forward the package of legislation reform for public space-friendly intervention and planning approaches. We have done similar work as UN Habitat, or UN Habitat has done similar work in Rwanda, in Egypt, and in Colombia, and this also should be revisited and evaluated. Next, please. In the Philippines, for instance, just to go a little bit more in detail, we managed to, UN Habitat managed to compare new planning approach with the standard planning created very clear agenda for reform, and also highlighted the problems of business as usual as far as the quality of urban space and public space in particular is concerned. Next.
Sorry, Laura, can you please go to the end so that we go to the next speaker?
I just wanted to mention the need for, sorry, next then, because colleagues that follow me will talk about how connecting public space to, let's say, urban visions and sectoral intervention, which I think Elin will talk about, so I don't need to expound on that. But I wanted to mention also the need to understand better and leverage much more the financing and resource dimension around the public space, and to understand the virtuous cycle of public space. Next. We need to, next. We need to move from ideation and implementation, which has been maybe the focus for a very long time, to a more sustainable look to public space over time in terms of quality and inclusion, but also of financial sustainability. Need to change the slide, sorry. Yes, so next. Yes, so we need also to understand the cycle of value creation in the city and how public space contributes to that, because actually public space, next slide, it's at the center of that process and should be really understood as a public asset for the creation of a better city in a much wider sense. And we have a very big gap in terms of understanding the mechanism that can be used and the processes that can support this type of value capture, value sharing around public space. Sorry, the last slide. Yes, so sorry, I just come to the conclusion, and I want to mention, first of all, my strong support for the need for taking stock of what is happening in public space and what is the status of public space, and to enhance the SDG 11.7 monitoring and expand it through a state of public space report, which actually the Biennale is proposing, and I think it should be a very important step. Also, we need to start very soon the advocacy for the post-2030 agenda globally, so that public space continue to be a key development topic also going forward, and we learn from all this experience. And finally, I think, and in line with the theme of the Biennale, that through coalition networks and concrete collaboration at all levels, we could actually address the three areas that I was mentioning: the reform and the progress in policy, planning and design, the integrated approach with sectoral intervention and with large investment, and finally the innovative budgeting, value capture, and innovative management that is also need to be strengthened. So I think this is a sort of hope that the agenda can expand and cover these areas going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Laura, for this comprehensive overview. And now I pass the floor to Elin Fabre, that will present the Her City program from UN Habitat. Elin?
Hello, everyone. Buongiorno. It's a pleasure to be here. I think we could start by changing the slide to the next one. And perhaps as an introduction, as Luisa said, thank you very much. I will talk about the Her City Toolbox, but I will also talk about the Global Observatory of Sustainable Proximity. So if you move to the next one, I'll tell you why. I think many of you were actually met during the last Biennale, where we actually had a focus on proximity. So what I'm going to do now is a little bit to talk about a few initiatives and projects that the UN Habitat are partnering with multi-stakeholder partners to deliver. And these are the two ones that I would like to showcase specifically, starting with the observatory. Because as you know, you could go to the next slide actually. Oh, it looks really odd here. Wow. This is not what it looks like on my screen, but okay, bear with me. I think the fonts have gone crazy. Anyway, so since the last Biennale, 2 years ago, with the proximity focus, that actually led to a set of key messages showcasing what proximity could be about in a growing global community. This Global Observatory of Sustainable Proximities has been working tirelessly within various working groups to move this agenda forward. And you might actually be aware that we met, and that's one of the reasons that we can't really be with you in Rome now, because last week we met in Paris together with the mayor of Paris and actually 300 other proximity-oriented partners during this large conference towards sustainable urban proximities to continue to craft the proximities agenda. So this really showcased how the Biennale was an important vehicle to actually support and start the conversation about public space and cities in proximity and how it continues. But if you go to next, but I'll show you a little bit what we've been doing between last Proximity Biennale and this conference. But you need to move to the next slide. Yeah, so 3 things mainly. The proximity observatory has taken this very well known concept of the 15-minute city developed by Carlos Moreno and the Sorbonne University that actually evolves around the social functions of the city. And we're trying to support cities globally that already have intentions to implement proximity-oriented policies or strategies and support them in how to do that. So this concept that was a little bit more developed in Europe and also tested a lot in Latin America has now grown slightly to fit and support cities all across the globe, expanding to Africa, Middle East, and Asia as well. So we've ended up these 2 years of work with 7 principles and 23 global indicators and 20 or so innovative tools. So you can go to next. So in terms of the principles, the 6 original social functions has grown to 7, and they are framed like this: the affordable city, the resilient city, the caring city, the mixed-use city, the inclusive city, the thriving city, and the just city. So that is kind of the backbone of the methodology. Next. And these are all related to different global indicators that also are connected to the SDGs and the urban monitoring framework. So here are the ones that our joint research has shown could be today actually measured with existing data in most cities of the world, and tell us about the progress of proximity in cities. Next. And as I said, we're building this repository of tools for proximity-based planning. A few of them you see here. And I will definitely tell you more about the HerCity one that's on the upper right side, but you also see other tools developed by UN Habitat, but also tools developed by UCLG, for example, and of course other academic partners such as the Sorbonne. But the idea is to really give you a kind of comprehensive toolbox to implement proximity-based planning in cities. Next. And what the conference actually resulted in, besides a set of kind of an outcome document with a set of key messages, is really to feed into this global methodology for local governments. As you can see here, I mean, it's a scientific approach, but it's very technical and it's oriented towards local governments. And it really captures like the people-centered urban planning, and it has policy-oriented recommendations. You can go to next. And this methodology, this is just the overview to give you an idea, but you can go to next, actually. Next again. This will be launched during Urban October in just a few weeks. So we're also happy that some of the conversations here during the Biennale, because together, proximity are all very related, that could also perhaps enrich this final methodology. And here you have a QR code, so you could stay tuned and read it when it's launched in October, but we'll also communicate on social media. So I think that is my last point I wanted to make in regards to the observatory, but you could go to next. And I'll give you together for her city, I give you a sneak peek of the new expanded Her City toolbox as one of the tools that are included in the observatory kind of portfolio of interactive digital tools. You could go to next. Her City is also, I click several times. Thanks. There's some kind of animation. So just click next twice. Thanks. So Her City is actually another UN Habitat partnership program or project that has been developed and evolved with the Biennale. The first pilot was actually showcased correct me, which year must that have been, Pietro? 19, I think, or even before, 18 or even 17, as one of the ways to put the methodology together to support most vulnerable populations in cities to co-create and co-design and co-plan public space together. So I don't think here we need to discuss more about the urban challenges and what we see as solutions, because I think my colleagues have done that quite extensively before. But the bottom line is that cities have rarely been planned with and for women and girls. And there is a growing understanding that we need to take all of the population into consideration, and that needs are different, but there's a lack of know-how in how to do this. So the Her City Toolbox really provides that kind of step-by-step guide to co-plan and co-design from an intersectional and gender perspective. Next. Click several times. So we get all the text.
Sorry, Elin, please go to the end, since we need to pass the floor to the next speaker.
Okay, let me tell you then, if you move forward a little bit. So very quickly, we of course focus on SDG 11 and the target on public space, but it's also a way to kind of localize the entire SDG agenda and the new urban agenda. And so you can move to next. Next. Yeah, click again. So the toolbox, I mean, I think a few of you know it from the past, and as I said, it's really a way to integrate different intersectional perspectives and have this kind of step-by-step digital guide. And what we do is really to support partners to facilitate this dialogue between decision makers and citizens. Next. You could actually go to next again, or even jump two more, because what I wanted to share with you, and next again, is that we're going to launch the new version of the Her City Toolbox in 11 flexible blocks. Go to next. which includes many more of UN Habitat's tools going beyond public space, actually. So looking at more of the monitoring and evaluation, but also looking at how we can mainstream inclusion more with gender, of course, as a strong entry point, but also making sure that other vulnerable populations are part of the conversation. I think, I mean, I have a few more slides, but if we don't have time, that's really what I wanted. This is kind of the reach of the program. If you want to take next, you can see just a bit of before and after images. And then I think here, for example, if you look at the top left corners of the two sets of images, you have the before and after picture from a project in Beirut, for example. And the last one here, a few of the most recurring kind of solutions that these processes end up with. So you see there's a lot about mobility and greenery and accessibility and water and sanitation, etc. And perhaps less about the safety and security as we usually kind of assume with women and girls. So perhaps we stop there, and I'll give the floor, I think, to José.
Thank you, Elin. Stay online for questions at the end. Okay, so now I give the floor to José Chong. A round of applause coming from the audience. Yes, and now, yes, José Chong, who is the leader of the Global Public Space Program. José?
Thanks a lot, Luisa, and I will try to be brief because of time. It's a pleasure to be here again. Unfortunately, virtually connected from Nairobi, and but it's always nice to interact with our partners and colleagues that are now there in Rome. So I will be very brief, and I will tell you a little bit. I had our previous presentation from colleagues explaining about the UN Habitat mandate on public space. I will be go more to a process that is we are focusing now, and starting with a global public space program. Next slide, please. And it's Laura explained that it's the global public space program exists from 2012. And actually, this came through a UN Habitat Governing Council resolution in the year 2011 that mandates UN Habitat on the importance to work on public spaces for sustainable urban development. No? So I think this resolution was it was pushed by the government of Kenya, and it's it mandates habitats to work and advance the agenda of placemaking and public spaces, develop a policy approach on the role of public spaces, and assist coordinating UN Habitat partners in creating, disseminating knowledge, and also to mandate to create networks to share information on public space. So you have the QR code here, so you can go find more information of all those years of experience working on the topic of public space. Next slide, please. So mainly how we operate, and actually for us, I think this is quite important. That is what we have from the public space program, and we know that there is a lot of partners and tools available on the improvement of public space. But it's we wanted to have sort of this innovation component to address the topics that it comes with the mandate of United Nations, and it's some of the entry points that is that we were focusing in the last years is on climate action, digital engagement, gender equality, as it was showcased in the Her City Toolbox presentation. Child-friendly solutions. We have been working a lot with UNICEF on this topic. Governance and of public space is quite key, and it was highlighted by Laura. Migration and refugees, that is quite important in this context, these encounter places, to have the encounter between host communities and migrants, crisis response, capacity building, universal design, and placemaking. No? So it's we are working with all the scale, we do a lot of implementation, with partners, more on the ground, to learn of the experience that is happening in the place, but also like we do intervention more at the neighborhood level. And we are supporting a lot of cities like to understanding the quality of the system of public spaces in cities. And this is quite important. And also to push national policies on public space. Very few countries has like a policies on urban policies, but lower have like a policies on public space in general. Next one, please. So this is a snapshot of the project that we have contributed along the years. So it's like you can see like a little bit on the statistics, like we have intervened of more than 100 cities in 55 countries, like with a lot of community engagement and participation. More than 50,000 people has been engaged on these processes. And it's like we have actually a footprint that covers all the regions, including Europe, like with 11% of our projects actually focus in Europe, 26 in Africa, 30 in Asia, 20 in Latin America, and in Middle East around 12%. No, so it's like we are having like this global mandate of like on public spaces, and we wanted to have like the different anti-policies of intervention of each region. Next one, please. Some examples of technical cooperation, and it's like it was shown before, like we promote a lot of community participation, and we are using innovative tools. One of the tools that we are using is Minecraft, like through the block methodology, when we engage communities on the co-design of public spaces. Here, like showcasing some project in Oslo. This is mainly like in neighborhood that we have like a big percentage of migrants, and it's like they had like some security issues. Next one, please. And all these projects like can be showcased here in this database. So it's like you can find more information of our projects in this urban indicators database. So it's happy like to share like some of the impact stories like from the program. Next one, please. Maybe to enter a little bit on more on the citywide approach, and this is quite important. It's like we have realized that apart like from this punctual intervention on public space, our role is mainly like to support cities, like to have like a citywide approach on evaluation of public space, but also on strategies, and then scaling up like more to the national level. This is an example of analysis that we did in Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. Through a project that was related like to how to integrate host communities and migrants, in the case of Latin America for economic migration, and in the case of Lebanon because of crisis. So next one, please. And as Elin was showing, like we have like a broad range of tools. All these tools are available online. That it goes like from participatory tools, like more like to understanding of the system of public spaces in their own cities. I wanted to highlight like one of the tools that we are using is Kobo Toolbox. Like this tool is an open source tool that help us to analyze and to send surveyors like to gather information of the quality on public space in cities. And I think like this has been fundamental to also to fit on the discussion of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have produced 40 cities where we have citywide public space assessments that help us like to understand on the quality and accessibility of public spaces, mainly in these cities, and providing policy recommendations. Next one, please. Also, as a part of our normative, I wanted to highlight again like this collaboration like with the Journal of Public Space. One of the last one that we have collaborated also with the journal is like a Young Game Changers. This is an initiative that combine the topic of public space, youth, and health, and it's like it is captured like on this collaboration like with the journal. Next one, please. During the years, like we have had like a broad range of partners and donors, and it's like mainly to mention here that it's like we go like from collaboration with cities, NGOs, development banks, but also UN agencies. And actually, as UN Habitat, we are convening a group like two UN agencies working on the topic of public space, and this is quite important to have a consolidated mandate. And it's we are focusing on definitions, strategies, and mainly to support the Sustainable Development Goals monitoring. So I think this topic of the public space report that is initiated by the Biennale, I think is quite important endeavor to analyze what has happened on these 15 years of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Next one, please. What has happened with the program, and this is a timeline, and it's some of these milestones has been already been shared by colleagues here, but it's mentioning that in 2012 we started the public space program, and then it's we had Habitat 3 as one of the main milestones in Quito, in Ecuador, and then it's also the adoption of the 2030 agenda with the specific target of public space, then the different tools and the creation of decentralized networks working on public space. One example from Ayanda, the support that we are providing with the Center of Africa Public Space. In the case of Latin America, through the Public Space PAC, that is we're working with NGOs like Lima Como Vamos, and then other organizations as Avina Foundation, to mainstream the importance of to have these kind of regional chapters on public space mandates, and that is more closer to the region with particular challenges and opportunities in the topic of public space. We have been evolving, and then it's this is aligned also to the strategic plan from UN Habitat, and we have identified some priority areas. Maybe next one, please. And it's we understood after these 14 years of work that it's this is important for us to mainstream and to work more collaboratively with partners. And it's after some discussions internal and also with partners, we have developed and we found some actions that is needed to mainstream public space when we are talking about sustainable urban development. So it's some options, for example, to have to transform from a centralized program to a decentralized network, and this is quite important. We will have one specific session on the global public space network, and then to strengthen implementation to regional partnership to ensure the legacy and impact of the program and also of these activities, integrating public space expertise and tools. We know that there's a lot of knowledge around the world, so it's we wanted to integrate it in a hub, and then strengthening partnerships and collaboration and mainstreaming public space between UN Habitat, United Nations, and external partners in general. Next one, please. So what we have initiated actually last year, in a process that we call the strengthening the global public space network. This network was attached to the global public space program, and it's we have around 800 members around the world. This is adding individual and institutions working on the topic of public space. We have around 15 UN organizations, public sector, civil society, and academia and researchers. So it's we went to a dialogue through regional chapters. Next one, please. And in this process is the main idea is how we can scale up the programs, impacts and achievements, to have a more a understanding of how to improve public spaces with partners and consider them to scale up the momentum and the importance of public spaces in urban development in general. No, so I think next one, please. We launched actually this global public space network during the World Urban Forum last year in Cairo. We had actually some of the people who are in this picture there that is going to be participating during the Biennale, and is we have been having next one, please. Several meetings with the partners to try to co-create this new network that is building up from the activities from the public space program and how to strengthen collaboration. So it's for now we started with some focal points and organizations in each of the regions, and we had a series of meetings. Actually, Pietro has been participating in some of them through organize and how will be the priorities to focus in the next year for consolidation. Happy to say that it's the Biennale is going to be the first in-person meeting after this process, and we are relaunching the public space network in collaboration and with other partners. No, so we have the regional chapters. Next one, please. As a part of the process, also we have a new terms of reference of what we should focus and concentrate when we are talking about the public space network, and mainly how, for instance, to support the design, creation, protection, implementation, management, and maintenance of public space, and it's to also foster the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals and the new urban agenda. No, so it's this is quite important because it's we need to guarantee that it's we have a more formalized mechanism to support this process for that post-2030 agenda, and to ensure that public space also is important issue and topic in general. Next one, please. Maybe only to end up, we'll want to invite to the people who are here in the Biennale, to join to the network. You can join as an institution or as an individual, and you can participate on these events. We have now created a LinkedIn account, so it's please follow the LinkedIn account of the Global Public Space Network. And it's if next one, please, if you want to join us, we will have an in-person session encounter with the Global Public Space Network tomorrow, 19 in the Aula Sabatini. So thanks a lot for the opportunity, and I hope to have a very good deliberation during the Biennale. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, José. We have around 5 minutes to close this session because it's time for lunch, because we are restarting at 2 p.m. So I don't have time to ask questions. I wanted, actually, after all this round of very interesting perspectives, also navigating the complexity, as also some previous speakers referred to. But I just want to ask you, David, since you are here in person, now that we have, been into all these efforts, activities, activation, because there is a lot going on, top down, bottom up, and especially, the way UN Habitat is mobilizing civil society to reclaim public space from the ground up and pushing also local governments. This is I believe this is the main question. What are local governments doing to implement public space? And so, since you are from the office in Europe, what is going on in Europe? What is the state? Where can we find public space across policies, programs, initiatives, also thinking about the Horizon Europe program that is giving financial support to public space?
So, yeah, thanks for that question. And I really think the role of local authorities is key. I live in Brussels, and there are many different municipalities in the city, and it seems sometimes that the municipalities are competing for attention, for people to move there. And what they're doing is really focusing on the use of public space. So each municipality has a small budget, which they use for small concerts, which are done by civil society. We have a cycling day where they have pop-up mechanics and all this sort of thing to fix your bike. And then there are certain parts of public spaces that are being greened for biodiversity and things like this. And I think this is a really good publicity for the municipality. It's not so expensive, but it's showing that the municipality sort of cares for people and the spaces around them. So I think it's a good idea for municipalities to earmark funding and to open up the space for civil society to come and suggest how public spaces could be used. Because I think when people enjoy their public spaces, they enjoy their city. And And then we need to go then from that sort of local level very much to the global level. And I think it is the role of local authorities to protect, use, and maximize the use of public space. But Italy, for instance, is so famous for its public spaces that we need, you know, civil society here in Italy to send the political message up to ensure that public space is recognized in the continued development agenda as we move beyond the SDGs into whatever happens after 2030. So work locally, again, as they always say, act locally, think globally, or something like this. Act on both levels. And I think civil society can do both. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, now just a quick round before I give the floor to Pietro, because I know that UN Habitat is also working with the UCLG, United Cities and Local Governments, and Elin also for the Observatory on Urban Proximity mentioned the collaboration with UCLG. I don't know if José or maybe Laura would like to say something regarding this collaboration, but very quickly, just 30 seconds, and then I pass the floor to Pietro. José?
Yeah, maybe a quick one only on the note of UCLG, and maybe Laura also you wanted to mention something. Actually, United Cities and Local Government has been for us a champion on the topic of public space. We have co-created with them like some documents on public space. And I think like this is something that is also moving forward like with a collaboration with Sorbonne University and UCLG on the topic of proximity. So I think, and we believe like this the role of local governments is quite important. Cities are realizing the importance of public space like for quality of life, but also to attract investments, and it's like to reduce inequalities. And I think like this is a fundamental issue that we have to strengthen, and like we try to achieve like with our networks of cities. I will leave it there. Maybe you, Laura, you wanted to complement.
No. Maybe just I think that there are two concepts that UCLG is been promoting, and one is public space as a service, and bringing public space as a public service, bringing public space in the concept and in the let's say agenda, strictly speaking, of key responsibility of local government. And I think that's very important for public space, because not all cities actually understand necessarily this role and their responsibility on the public space. And then the other one, which is more recent in a way, but very interesting, is also around the concept of the caring cities, and how public space can let's say help create more friendly situation, particularly for certain groups like women, or the caring economy, or the caring actors, etc. I think that these are two interesting perspectives that cities are promoting with very innovative also initiatives. So, yeah.
Thank you. Now, Pietro, I think you want to close this session.
Thank you. No, simply it's fairly late. We're a few minutes beyond our schedule. A very short time for a quick lunch before our 2 p.m. sessions start. And so let me just thank Luisa, first of all, who conducted this meeting. David Aubrey, who came all the way from Brussels to give us a very precise and informative presentation. And finally, of course, Laura Petrella, Elin Andersdotter, and Josè Chong, who put us up to speed on the present situation and present activities and engagements and future plans of UN Habitat with regard to public space. So with that, thank you, everybody. We finished a very intense inaugural session, and we all come back at 2 o'clock to attend our respective sessions in the various beautiful rooms of this department. Thank you very much.